My dear students of class 9A and 9B, today a new lesson I shall introduce. A new lesson I shall teach you. The name of the lesson is The Renaissance. Lesson number 11, The Renaissance. And my points, as mentioned, meaning, causes for the rise of Renaissance, political factors, economic factors, Crusades, and last, fall of Constantinople. Now, the meaning of the Renaissance. What is the meaning of the Renaissance? You know, Renaissance is actually a Latin word. The meaning of this Latin word is rebirth or revival. And in very simple terms, Renaissance meant the revival of learning, the revival of culture, where the intellect broke from the dark age, means broke from the complete dominance of the church. It marked a change. It marked a sudden change from the darkness of the medieval age, darkness of the Middle Age to the enlightenment of the Middle Age. That means, due to the newly introduced concept rebirth of Renaissance, people began to be educated. People started learning unknown things, the things which were unknown to them, they started learning it. So the meaning of Renaissance means rebirth. It was a movement actually that began in Italy in the 14th century, and then it spread all over Europe. Now, this movement witnessed a series of new developments and developments in the fields of art, architecture, literature, science, etc., and that were totally independent of the church. So this is the concept of Renaissance, or meaning of Renaissance. Now there are some causes for the rise of Renaissance. Here I have mentioned some causes: political factors, economic factors, Crusades, and then fall of Constantinople. First, political factors. What were the political factors which led to the rise of Renaissance, the concept Renaissance? What were the causes? Number one, political factors. You know, the Middle Age was a period of political uncertainty, actually. Actually, the medieval is a period of political uncertainty. The breaking of the Holy Roman Empire, meant that each region of Europe was struggling to establish its political identity. By the 14th century of political conditions, the political conditions of Europe had stabilized, as important ruling dynasties like Tudors of England, like Medicis and Borgias of Italy, like Bourbon of France, had begun to exert their political authority and power. So this is the plain picture of the medieval age. But this stability helped them to be self-sufficient. People began to trade with other places, and people began creative instead of living in fear of their lives and the future. They started making themselves self-sufficient. Some of these ruling houses, particularly those of Italy, were very great, were fond of making good things, the things which were unknown to them, but they knew it. They started making it in order to show their talents, their skills. They are actually patrons of art and architecture. They wanted to uh, show their talents, their power and authority through their taste in art and architecture, art and literature. So these are the political factors which led to the growth and development of Renaissance. The next point, economic factors. What were the economic factors? The kingdoms of the medieval ages had almost become, luxurious in their lifestyle. They led a very luxurious lifestyle at the cost of the common people. The manor of the castle became self-sufficient in all respects. Trade had almost, come to a halt with no uniform system, monetary exchange, but most trade in the Middle Ages was done through the barter system. As the king was the head, the king controlled the entire system of trade in the interest of himself. And in that case, most of the people had no liberty. They could not earn sufficient money. They contributed a lot. They worked hard, but the major portion of their profit were taken by the king. But the people could not enjoy their income, their profit. They could not save their money. They earned a lot but could not save their money. People started ultimately reading books, and ultimately they began to use their power of reason. They questioned the existing authority of the kings. Initially they were under the church, but when the king kept control over the system, he also became autocrat, and this autocratic rule the people did not want to accept. And it was due to that reason in various places, the Italian princes, the Italian writers encouraged them by contributing their works like Dante, Petrarch, Boccaccio, Machiavelli. They encourage intellectual thinking and ideas, so that people must be conscious and desirous to gain knowledge, and ultimately people became self-sufficient and next point, and started earning money, and without being controlled by anyone else. Next one, Crusades. What is the Crusades? Crusades were religious wars, my dear students, fought between the Muslims and the Christians. Crusades were religious wars fought between the Christians and the Muslims. Thousands answered the call and marched out of their, cocooned lives into the world for the first time. The crusade was not just a single battle. It was a series of wars spread over decades, and the lands were conquered had to be ruled by the crusaders. Suddenly the quiet life of the villagers changed dramatically. Why? Because of the concept of Renaissance. Crusades changed their attitude completely. It was difficult for those worldly wise men to come back and accept the dictates of the church. They aimed to keeping them in ignorance. The church wanted to establish its power over there. Church did not want to make them educated. Church wanted to make them uneducated, ignorant. Fleeing monks and scholars from holy lands, conquered by the Turks, carried with them texts and scientific theories that had grown in the East. It is due to the works of the, whenever the people gain knowledge from the persons who started teaching them, the idea and concept of Renaissance encouraged them, and their scientific temperament helped them to be self-sufficient, courageous, educated. Automatically they gain confidence, and some of these things like another important factor, that is fall of Constantinople. Fall of Constantinople in 1453, my dear students. Fall of Constantinople occurred in which year? In the year 1453. Fall of Constantinople occurred. Now, what is the meaning of fall of Constantinople? What do you know about it? The center of knowledge. What was the center of knowledge? The center of knowledge was the Roman Empire. But suddenly the Roman Empire was captured by the Ottoman Turks. Ottoman Turks, one of the it was one of the most and main reasons for the birth of the Renaissance. Why? Because the Roman Empire was captured by Ottoman Turks and many Greek scholars. During that time, many Greek scholars who lived there, they fled and took shelter in Italy. And when they left the places, they also brought their manuscripts, valuable manuscripts with them. As a result, the universities of Florence, the universities of Venice, Milan in Italy became important centers of education, and these were established. And ultimately it became an educated center, a very important center for education. And important features of the Renaissance was the rise of literacy, and people learned to read, write, not only Latin but also other vernacular languages. This was the time which saw the emergence of, the great universities, Oxford, Cambridge and Naples also. Spread of knowledge created kind of thinking. So Renaissance reached its highest extent in the 16th century in the Italian city-states, my dear students. And the invention of printing press around 440 by Johannes Gutenberg made books available to people who could read. Till then, books were not accessible to the masses, as they were handwritten manuscripts. Handwritten books were there, and it was expensive also. But by 1550, there were around 1,000 printers in Europe. Ultimately, it gave them confidence. The readers gained knowledge by reading books. It helped them to be self-sufficient, and people decided to make their profession, in which profession would be suitable to them. They now decided it by reading books. Also, they came to know by reading books about the unknown world. Now, they decided to trade with them without caring of their lives, because they wanted to make money, and by hook or by crook. But this is the reason which things help them to be self-sufficient, help them courageous. Only the scientific spirit, only the concept and the meaning of Renaissance which encouraged them. These are the reading factors of the, my dear students, of the Renaissance. These these are the most important factor and causes for the rise of Renaissance. Up to this, my dear students, next day the remaining part will be discussed. But before finishing my today's teaching, I would like to inform you that this is the most important point you have to keep in your mind. These 2 points, political factors and fall of Constantinople, because political factors help the people of Italy to be self-sufficient. They automatically became factors because they came out of the control of the politics of the kings, initially church and then kings, and by reading books they all became self-sufficient. Automatically people became prosperous, rich, economically, politically. But afterwards, Crusades also one of the most important factor. It also led to the way of capturing political powers. So suddenly Constantinople fell into the hands of the Turks, and Constantinople was a great center of learning. So the people, the Greeks who were living there, they in fear of Turks, they left. They immediately left Constantinople with their valuable manuscripts for Italy, and reached Italy and established their settlement there. And so these are the important causes you have to keep in your mind for the rise of Renaissance. Up to this, next day, the remaining part. Thank you.